Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hyperspace on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening, and a special thank you to webmaster and producer Keith Rowland. And my special guest this evening is John Stormm. And John was born in 1953 in a family of hereditary witches that count their ancestry all too many centuries ago in ancient Tara. He was raised and trained in the craft as the only male witch in his family by his grandmother. He has grandchildren of his own. He began serious martial arts training in 1963. His sensei became his father figure. He strove for perfection, holding a second-degree black belt in Mas Oyamas Karate and a master's ranking in Chinese Kenpo. By the early 1970s, between training for tournaments and running his own small chain of studios, he took radio and TV broadcasting at El Paso Community College in Colorado Springs, Colorado. This gave John his first good taste of journalism. 30-plus years later, and dying to write some of these experiences in a book, he wrote an entire series in the Witch Clan theme, and these are character-driven stories with true-to-life characters and experiences melded into an entertaining fantasy. And his first full-length novel in this series is Matriarch of the Witch Clan. And readers are encouraged to visit his website at www.witchclan.com, but apparently the feds took that down, and we'll get into that. To correspond with the author or get information on the next release, he and his family sponsor and are also registered as Witches of the World at the Witch's Voice, witchbox.com, and can be found in their archives. And John has his books available on Bookrix, and one of which is called Practical Witchery, and that's available for free. You can download that, and an awesome read. And for the longest time, he kept his MK Ultra exposure rather low-key. It's that it's, quote-unquote, it's that it always seems to be too much for people to get their heads around, and it's no fun drawing out those experiences for people. Even then, his craft is as much a part of him as breathing. And please welcome John to the show this evening during this full moon. Hey, John.
Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great to have you on again.
It's always good to be on.
It's always good. Yeah, it's always good to touch base with you. So tell me what you've been working on. What have you been doing?
Lately, I've just been trying to kind of get myself healed. I've been working on a lot of charms and craft items and that for a few friends that kind of helped me through probably some of the worst years of my life with all that the strokes and the diabetes had done to me. I seem to be rebounding up here in the mountains of New Hampshire. Amazingly so. I'm nowhere near what I was, but hey, at 62, nobody is. But I seem to be picking up, definitely on the upswing.
Mm-hmm. You certainly are, and I'm so glad you're getting stronger. It just your energy is a lot more powerful. There's no doubt about it. Well, you've been teetering in between dimensions, and I mean, at least you used to, walking between worlds. And we got into a lot of what you've been involved in. And I kind of wanted to give our listeners, since this is a new audience for you, I'd like to kind of give them a touch or a, kind of a feel insofar as what you've been involved in your past, and also the kind of lineage you come from, the type of witch that you are.
I'm a Danaan witch. Some of you might make the connection Tuatha De Danaan. That would be correct. It's considered. See, I don't stand by this entirely. I think the world's a lot older than a lot of the academics have made it out to be. But it's considered to be one of the oldest forms of witchery. It's in worship of Mother Danu, which is Mother Earth or Mother Nature, as you know her. If you ever seen those little Stone Age booby dolls from Paleolithic times, that's Danu. And the Celts and the Norse who had settled around Central Europe, the Danube River Valley, for instance, is also named after her and that ancient people. And that's kind of where a lot of our craft originated, or our particular part of it did.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I'll go ahead if you're continuing. I was going to ask you, how does your craft differ from a regular mainstream craft?
Well, like regular Wicca,
mm-hmm.
There's an awful lot they have in common. See, Wicca is what they call a Reconstructionist religion. Originally formed by a fellow named Gardner, and then there, shortly, in the early 1950s, actually, I believe he came from one of the older craft families himself, because they took a lot of what was already out there or what he already had on the craft, and they added a bunch of things. They filled in the gap with little Kabbalah, Christian mysticism, and Eastern mysticism. So it's not exactly the same craft, but most of it is there and intact. A lot of the tenets, like what they call the threefold law or the law of karmic return, it's got so many names it's ridiculous. And a lot of the tenets are pretty much the same or very similar. Ours is a matriarchal religion as opposed to a patriarchal, but then most indigenous people, First Nations, Native Americans, Aboriginal cultures tend to be matriarchal rather than patriarchal. Matriarchy is not the exact opposite of a patriarchy. In a patriarchy, the men are on top, the women are kind of second-class citizens or even property in some cases. In a matriarchal society, it's pretty much either or, and you got to consider that your ancestors weren't stupid. Or at least your further ancestors weren't stupid. The ones the last couple thousand years need to beat their head against rocks more. It's kind of like you have a left leg and a right leg, and this patriarchy kind of has the whole of society walking at a pronounced limp, where the people back in our time and the more indigenous cultures, well, it's either or, women or men, whoever's better qualified or oldest and wisest, pretty much they rule equally. Two legs walking just as strong side by side, none of this one dragging the other or the other walking 10 paces behind or any of that baloney. It's better for the survival of the people. So I kind of come through a matriarchy. I tend to be very matriarchal in my way of looking at things. My daughter is the current matriarch of our clan. I raised her well. She's a fine adept witch, and I did my best to raise my kids in the craft as best I could. I had a lot of contention to get there.
Right, and we'll get into that a little bit too. So what makes up the clan in general? Is it strictly bloodline, or is it something else?
Well, mostly it's bloodline. It's your extended family, uncles, aunts, cousins, and second cousins, and all that kind of stuff. But these days, or probably the last 10 years or so, I've been kind of taking a much wider view. There were originally, tales kind of vary depending on the culture that you happen to be talking to, what they call 200 original weirding clans. The Book of Enoch, an old apocryphal book, I think it tells this story the best. I've heard it, I heard several different versions of it, but I like Enoch's the best, where he talks about these 200 rebel watchers kind of coming down or ascending or descending onto Mount Hermon or Mount Armon, and they decide to mate with men and women, hybridize, and face it, all of Cro-Magnon man as we know it is a hybrid species here on this planet. Mm-hmm. And they taught the craft and everything, and the craft is a lot more far-reaching than just chanting chants and waving sticks and wands and bubbling stuff in cauldrons and wearing pointy hats. The craft is a it's a far vaster thing to learn, but every culture has these. And many of them consider themselves the ruling clans of their particular areas, or as such, they figure their mandate from heaven is having this particular blood and these particular watcher traits in your family. So I recognize that over the years, the 200 clans have been diminished somewhat. I mean, they didn't diminish. They bred, they had children and offspring, and there's people all over this world with all kinds of talents that they can't explain. They're told basically if they didn't learn anything through the 5 basic dogmatic senses that they will recognize, and those only, that you're either crazy, a heretic, or in league with the devil. But so many people do have talents that go beyond this. And I mean, a lot of them pretty normal people, that just have that little hunch, or they can feel those eyes staring at the back of their head. They know when they're being scrutinized. And none of those 5 senses gave them that information. And, once upon a time, it would be witches who were midwives, or witches or druids that were midwives and stuff, that would be delivering your children and teaching them. And they'd be noticing these traits. And some of them would be fostered as blacksmiths or as farmers or as husbandrymen or warriors or whatever, or even witches or druids, depending on how their talents went. And people today don't have that benefit. Some of them think they're crazy. Some of them are actually in nut houses because they hear voices and know things that they couldn't know otherwise. And it couldn't be because they're talented. It has to be because they're crazy, or they're sick, or they're deranged, or something bad like that. And this is not the case. So the last decade or so, I've been kind of, instead of just teaching my own clan, I mean, some accept it, some don't. Even in our own clan, but I think there's a much wider clan. But way back when, witches and druids wore black and white because they were neutral clan colors in a culture that knew what clan you were by what color tartan you wore. When you became a witch or a druid, you forsook your own clan tartan for the neutral black or the neutral white of those perspective well, Pliny the Elder used to call them 2 horns of the same bull. It was part of the infrastructure. So when you put on the black or the white, you promised to serve all of the clans. So I just kind of went global. There's people all over the world with talents that don't understand them, don't know where they came from. And as witches, we were kind of taught, we were brought up understanding them and learning to become more acquainted with them rather than fearing them or rejecting them or ostracizing somebody for them. So when I wrote books like Practical Witchery and that was to all of the world, all of the clans. I did it in the most generic terms that I could find to describe some of what we are, what we're really about. Things get so mystified and wrapped in so much mumble jumbo and hoodoo. It's sickening sometimes. So I had written this book, Practical Witchery, with it in mind that, maybe the rest of you got some talents too, or you got a granny or an aunt that had this gift or that gift, or maybe you got this gift or that gift, and you'd like to know where it came from. And the further you can see in the past, the more you know about your present, and the further you can see into your future. If I show you where it came from, teach you where you're at now, you can see where you're going with it, or you can at least develop a plan of where you're going to go with it. It's not there for no reason. Mm-hmm. It's been a survival trait for our species. And the times we're in the world today, we need that more than ever, because the people that do have it and holding all the reins of power are abusing that power just for their own selfish, greedy edification at the expense of everyone around them. Mm-hmm. And that's really not how it should be. You have 13 illuminous clans in charge of just about all the wealth and resources of the world today. That still leaves 187 other clans. And let's face it, some of us are mixed with a number of other clans. We shouldn't be ruled by someone who really isn't as evolved as ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's just not seemly to recognize them or treat them as gods when we can surpass them. And many of you know it.
Absolutely. And the thing is, John, they haven't been taught. That's the problem with most people. There's so much missing from the illusion of history on this planet. We've talked about that before. But we do have cellular memory, which can give us recall and expose the gifts that were there, reawaken them to some degree.
Some people have a genetic memory or along those lines. Mm-hmm. There are so many talents. I mean, people talk about a sixth sense, and I think, they think that's rather far out. It's kind of like you think there's only six. Somebody once pointed out that there was 270 some, and I think it's possible there might be more or combinations of those. Mm-hmm. It depends on a lot of your own inclinations. Some people are visually cued, so they have vision. Some people are aurally cued. They like music and the music of the spheres, and they hear they hear the voices, they hear the wind singing to them. And a lot of this sounds kind of out there, but it's kind of like if you're one of these people, it doesn't sound so out there at all. It's something you've been familiar with your whole life, and something that you're kind of strangely comfortable with, but doesn't make sense, and you can't talk about it to normal folks because otherwise they'll think you're crazy.
Right, and unfortunately, there's the natural clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient ability, and then of course we have the covert technology, which is based on synthetic telepathy, artificial telepathy, which of course you and I are quite familiar with, and right. I certainly am. So, and we'll get into the fact that you are, and if you even want to discuss that tonight, that you were one of the original MK Ultras.
Oh yeah, I'm one of the first generation. I was inducted into that shortly after I was born in 1953. I spent the first 18 months of my life fully immersed in that. And then a good part of it later, as I got pulled into this program and that program and different aspects of training and conditioning. But yeah, a lot of the technology these days and a lot of the things about our paradigm, our religion, our education has been actually to kind of cripple you. A crutch, so that you rely on the crutch so much you don't realize that you can walk without it sometimes. And with a little bit of training, knowledge is always power, and it's always power. Bad knowledge is designed to take away power. When you believe in something that is not necessarily true. Generally, when you find out that there's no supports up from under you, you fall. And you usually fall hard, and some people are strong and resilient, and they get back up. I know I've fallen a lot, and I get right back up again. And I came through MK Ultra. I've been programmed with some of the best of them, and I even helped train a lot of them, especially in the martial arts and the ninjutsu, arts of assassination, and that. Mm-hmm. I've even taught quite a bit of the craft to a lot of them, basically to help here or there where I could. I was a crafty witch, but then we were being dealt with by crafty warlocks, mm-hmm. Which is a different kind of witch. This doesn't necessarily mean a male witch. Doesn't have anything to do with being male. It has to do with being an oath breaker. And way back, once upon a time, I explain in my book, and I've explained on a few of our shows. Mm-hmm. Way back when they had libraries like the Library at Alexandria, there were many more besides. If you had a library, you had a university because now you had curriculum. If you were a mage, a sage of any sort, of any renown, you came and you reposited what information you had, a historian or whatever. The old publish or perish they have for PhDs and doctors now still held true then. Back then, if you studied medicine, incidentally, pharmacology was sorcery. The Greek word for it is pharmakia, the Greek word for sorcery or sorcerer. But that's what that particular craft was. So, I mean, you had these libraries, you had the college. Now, if you had the colleges, the higher learning, the postgraduate stuff, past the bachelor's and master's degree, now we're getting into the doctorates. You had the mystery schools. And when you went into the mystery school, just like they had the Hippocratic Oath, they had basically a generic form of that oath was basically you swore to take what you learned there and use it for the benefit of your communities. Like a witch puts on the black or a druid puts on the white. They serve all the clans, not just the clan they came from. You go and you serve all the clans. You make your living. They feed you. You always have a place to stay, a warm spot by the fire. A tankard of mead when you enter the tavern. Whatever the case may be. But there were certain unscrupulous magi that took those same oaths to learn those crafts, and instead of keeping them, they took what they learned and they used it to profit themselves at the expense of everyone around them. And sorcerers, not every sorcery. Sorcery is not necessarily a bad craft. It's just certain people made it that way. Pharmacology is not necessarily a bad thing, but big out of control, big pharma is a bad thing. They profit themselves at the expense of everybody else. They feed us poisons and things that we have to get only from them at high prices. And this is where sorcery began to get its bad name. It's also where the term warlock was coined. This was someone who broke their oath. So, like I say, an unscrupulous magi was a warlock. It's not a male witch. A witch just means wise one. It's not gender specific. It's just a wise one. Right. Witchcraft is the craft of the wise. When you have a council of wise, it's called the Witan, or the two T's together always makes the ch sound in Gaelic. So, it's Wichan. But these are the words you get: wit, wisdom. They're the base words for that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And of course, mainstream has just, bastardized the name witch anyway, when you think about it. So everybody assumes witches is evil and all, it just goes on with that pattern. It's still there. That conditioning program is still there for a lot of people.
I still get that a lot. Somebody will go on, you realize you guys lose in the end, don't you? And it's like, what do you say? Yeah, I'm sure you had an expert that stood at the pulpit and told you all about what it was and what it was like and everything else like that. And, I somebody passed a story on to me. Some fella got out of voodoo. Now, some of the people I know in voodoo aren't necessarily bad people at all. Very good people. Right. Very nice people. And he's talking about all this devil stuff. And it's kind of like, yeah, there's aspects of that in there. Even in Santeria, some Santeras tend to have a bad streak. But understandably, you got to understand all witches. Now, the difference between a witch and a wizard is academic, scholarly. All right. Knowledge is power. You can be a computer wizard. You don't have to be religious. You just have to be kind of above the norm. You've explored so much of the aspect of the knowledge of your particular craft that you can do things that's like magic to somebody else. Now, witches and most mage are clerics. All of us are clerics of one sort or another. I am a priest of Danu, Mother Earth, Mother Nature. High priest. Well, look, in our coven, everybody gets their chance to be high priest or high priestess. We all can't run the different sabbats, individually, or it would just be chaos. So it's agreed upon for this particular season. You are going to be the high priestess, and this ceremony, you're going to be responsible for setting that up and setting the tone of it. And the next one, well, maybe next time is my turn, and it kind of goes that way. And that's how a lot of that was originally done. People get caught up in their little power plays and their politics now, but they get away from the craft when they do that. Mm-hmm. But all witches are clergy. And let me tell you another little secret. I said it meant wise one, didn't I? And I said witchcraft is the craft of the wise. All clergy are witches, mages, many cases, warlocks, oath breakers. They're people who use their control and influence over you for their own benefit at the expense of everyone around them rather than the other way. We're all supposed to be wise. So, it's not, when the new religion got taken over by Constantine, who was incidentally the patron of the Babylonian religion, Is it any wonder that Easter, Passover is now Easter and Christmas is the winter solstice? And basically, he took all these pagan things, not that pagan's bad, it's just that he's misrepresented them to make this into a religion, which, of course, he is the head and the pope of, and the all-powerful Grand Poobah. And, these warlocks stand in front of people high on podiums between them and their cross or their god. And witches that I came from, we met in circles, and people standing in circles have no high or low.
Right. Yep. I love that. I love that about the craft. Well, in these organizations, and there's so many, and I call them corporations at this point in the continuum, but literally they're redirecting the collectives. It is a form of mind control and conditioning. It's literally redirecting their flow and power so that they are not able to access their true avatar abilities, which is really based on what you were talking about originally, paranormal calibration to the paranormal and multidimensional consciousness.
Right. Only the priest is supposed to have that. Now, in some places, you have, now in a lot of the Masonic, the Pentagon, basically they separate rings within rings within rings of power, circles, who gets to know what. It's a secret from everybody outside of this particular degree. And then they decide who could reach into those degrees with them or be moved up. If they felt that they'd be a threat to their power, they'd never be allowed to learn more. And that is the way they pretty much run things. Now, in the church at large, now I'm not saying absolutely everybody's churches. I recognize I've been to a few that I thought were quite nice, and I liked the way the power and the energy went through the place. So I know they're still out there. They're just not the norm, not really. But the priest has all the information. Somebody's got a problem. They want to know, geez, what does God think about me with this, that, or the other thing? Well, they go to the priest, and the priest tells them basically what to think, how to feel. Is that good, that bad? I've been having these dreams. Well, they're of the devil. I've been having these feelings or these intuitions or those visions. Well, if I don't like the vision, they're of the devil. Even when you have the visions of those children at, at Lourdes, Fatima or something like that, the Pope kind of put a seal on them that you couldn't know what they were. Why? Because they didn't want you to know what was in there. It challenged their power at some point in there. So it's a secret. It's a mystery. It's supposed to be held till whenever he says or they feel secure enough in their power to let you know. You're supposed to obey these commandments a certain way. However, if they deem it necessary for their power, there are certain dispensations made for, like, boffing little boys and seducing little girls and that's okay.
Right.
Garbage.
Like I said, it's a corporation. It really is. It's disguised as the electronic god, in my opinion. And I think that a lot of people who worship are obviously looking and seeking probably very good souls. But literally, you're dealing with these people who are postured. They hold these positions of the illusion of power, like you were saying, and they literally are not sincere. I'm not saying all of them are, but I would say the great majority are literally contaminated.
It's for profit, know. And you think about it, among the Gaels, among the Druids and the witches of the Celts, our holy language is Gaelic. It's our ancient language. Among the Hindus and such of India, it's Sanskrit. Among the Hebrews, it's Aramaic. It's the oldest form of their language. That's where the language of their forefathers, where they learned of this god or goddess or whatever we're talking about, depending on the culture. Mm-hmm. However, with the so-called Christian, all right, I say so-called because I need to designate it as being different than something that Christ actually taught.
Right.
Okay. The first century Christians were very, very different than what happened around the 3rd century when Constantine took over. But their holy language then became Latin, it is not an original language. It is a trade language. It is a language that Romans, they speak Italian. But when they want to do business with Celts or Greeks, they speak Latin. or Turks or Egyptians. It's a trade language. It's the language of money changers. It's the language of business. And you got to know. They say, well, you cannot serve God and mammon. But look at the richest church in the world, where you're wearing freaking golden slippers and silk robes and gold crucifixes and chalices and stuff everywhere, while children go hungry right outside the door. And occasionally they feed them soup.
Exactly. And there also is an obsession with the occult and paranormal, as we know. I mean, I look at the catacombs, for example, and all of the data that's been acquired, all these secret archives that are literally confiscated to some degree and traded. And of course, there's a lot of mystery school teachings in there, of which they've hoarded. I mean, and I don't want to get into real politics about it, but you understand.
Yeah. Knowledge is power. And they want you trapped into this little 4D paradigm. They don't want you looking beyond that. Everybody considers ghosts, and look at the way they term it. It's paranormal or it's supernatural. And it's like, let me tell you this about ghosts. There's nothing supernatural about them, nothing paranormal about them. They are normal, they are natural. If you don't think so, if your ghost wasn't running that meat sack you're wearing right now, you wouldn't be standing.
I love that.
It's normal. You got to have one. You are a soul. You have a body. The body's the secondary part. People wander through this life wondering, do I even have a soul? Have I sold it to the devil? Well, yeah, in most cases you all have, and you didn't get anything for it. In fact, you kind of got robbed in the deal. You see this 4D world. If you can't reach out and touch it, and taste it and smell it and see it and hear it with your 5 dogmatic senses, then it doesn't exist. But as I've said in some of my other videos and lectures on that, look, an atom is 99.99999% empty space. It is not solid. What you think of as solid is an illusion. What holds that together now is very, very interesting. What inhabits your body and even extends beyond it, which can be even measured with Kirlian photography and stuff, or just an EM meter. That is your soul. It's not contained just in your skin. It extends even beyond it. But when it leaves it, that body drops. Now, some people don't know where to go. They gave all of their power to these people who think for them, tell them what to believe, tell them what's good, what's bad, what to avoid. But there are those of us that are growing in grace and strength, and we're becoming the creatures, the eternal creatures we were intended to be. But the larger portion of us are being stunted for the benefits of these little gods, little g gods, that's running the planet. And that's a tragedy when you catch a lot of these paranormal things about these earthbound ghosts. That's the kind of the sad thing. These are the souls that had no idea there's more. There's a great deal more. We barely perceive. We think that things are in 3D. That's 3 dimensions: length, breadth, width, height, and like that. But there's actually a fourth of space-time. But actually beyond that, any physicist will tell you there's 10 or 11 dimensions, but you don't begin to perceive those. But you do in your dreams. You do when you have some of these other talents, when you can feel those eyes, somebody's scrutinizing you and you know you're being watched. And if you turn around, you're invariably right. You got a hunch about this person. You never met them in your life. There is nothing giving you the information that you got through the normal dogmatic 5 senses. I say dogmatic because that's the ones that they say you're only supposed to have, and anything else is either baloney or hoodoo or whatever madness. And it's like, that's not true. That's never been true. But as long as you're blinded from it, as long as you're hobbled, as long as you believe that and you limp along with your blinders on your eyes and your yoke hooked up to you to make money and that for somebody else, you're never going to see the greater world there is to see. You watch a lot of these paranormal things, I won't argue if they want to call it paranormal. much, but I'm telling you, that's normal. When you begin to learn that, you begin to open up to so much more and seeing so much more. And like I say, knowledge is always power.
Right.
Certain things will no longer be able to affect you quite the way they used to.
Absolutely. Well, they're lifting the veil. I mean, those of us who understand multidimensional consciousness really understand quote unquote multidimensional sight, which is psychic vision. And I think that's what you're
Right.
talking about here is
That's
really learning to
exactly
see.
what I'm talking
Yeah, we're
about.
calibrated to that sort of thing. So for beings who are on the path or have been, in their celestial heritage to be part of that path, automatically have access. But a lot of people don't, and they're very, some are fear-based, some are very frightened of it. Because of course, that's due to programming,
And
as
they've
we
been
know.
taught that, and they've been
Right.
taught that for generations on end.
Yep.
And like I say, my whole focus the last decade or so has been and it's like, look, my book, I'm not selling you anything. I'm not selling anybody anything. My book's available for free. It's an EPUB thing. It's like, look, I can't afford to pay to get the thing printed out for you. You can download it, use Adobe Digital Reader or something, and print out your own copy. You have my permission. I put the knowledge out there for your own benefit, not for mine. I'm not going to collect a dime for any of it, but I want you to have your own power. I want to take the power away from your masters and put it right back in your lap. And I want you to grow like the good Lord and Mother Earth intended for you to grow and not be a bond slave to monsters.
I so agree with you. And I must say that's a fabulous book, and I strongly suggest people do that. And it's on Book Ricks, of course, Practical Witchery, so everybody can access it through. And just it's an incredible read, incredible, and so informative. I mean, anybody who's on the path or is into the craft, yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah, there's no reason why somebody has to stand out before you and dictate for you what God wants and wants you to do in that. You can find out for yourself. You can ask him for yourself. You can connect with the universe at large. Is there going to be demons out there? Look, when you go out onto the city street or even the little town you live in, are they all going to be saints, or are some of them going to be sinners? It's like, yeah, get used to it. And you get better wise up to it, or you'll be taken by all the bad ones. And it's kind of like, this doesn't mean you have to be subjected to demons or anything. I tell demons where to go, not the other way around.
Absolutely. And John, I don't mean to interrupt you, but can you do me a favor? We've got a little popping going on your mic. So if you could just
I might be a
little off center. Let's see, maybe a 45-degree angle.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably my breath doing that.
That's okay. And thank you, Keith. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Now go ahead.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to disrupt your flow. You were awesome. Sorry.
Disrupt my flow.
But no, I mean, you were talking about the demons. So yeah. But literally, a lot of people, that's another thing too. How do you define a demon? How do you define one?
Oh, I would honestly take any good Rothschilds, George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Hillary Clinton. Good example. Just talking about an evil spirit. Everybody's got one. It's right. Just some are on a higher orders than ourselves.
Well, what about what if they don't?
A little further up the evolutionary chain. But there's also the other kind too. I tend to lean in the opposite direction. I want you to have your own power. I don't need to rule over you. My power is not contingent on me being better than you. It's like I'm willing to teach and show you anything you need to know to get you up where, hey, if you can exceed me, God bless you. I'm going to have good karma coming for that anyway, because we are siblings. You got to realize we belong to a bigger family than just this little sect and that little sect. People get these ideas that God is this cranky old white man on a throne in the clouds, and God is the consciousness that's holding all of those particles and those atoms, defining them to be hydrogen, helium, or whatever they are, and holding those like charges together when they should be flying apart, and those opposite charges from collapsing in on themselves when there is an order in this multiverse. Mm-hmm. And I call that main order, that main consciousness, capital G, capital O, capital D. Now there's a great deal between there and where we occupy right now. But that soul you got, that spirit you got, is a spark right off of that main piece there. You are a son or a daughter, or just consider yourself a child of God. That's what Jesus taught. It's kind of like, wow, if Christians did everything and believed everything and practiced everything the way Jesus taught them, the first century Christians did. It's just after that, it got turned into another kind of circus. Mm-hmm. The world would not be in the way it is. Everybody arguing, oh, Jesus is the messenger. Oh, no, Moses was the messenger. No, Muhammad was the messenger. No, Buddha was the messenger. And it's like, listen, idiots, didn't you get the message?
Right. Yeah, and it's all transmission and consciousness, too. It's interesting because we come from a galactic family. We live in a galactic neighborhood, whether we acknowledge it or not. So
this is true. We are hybrids. We are not we are part of what was here, like Australopithecus, Neanderthal. We're part of what was here, but we didn't evolve naturally. People, the Darwinists like to look for the missing link, and it's like, look, you're looking for about at least 30 of them to get from the Neanderthal to the Cro-Magnon, and it happened practically overnight. The whole skeletal structure, none of it's the same. We do not have one bone in common with the Neanderthals. Yes, we got ribs, but they got different ribs than we got. The whole structure of their rib cage is different than ours. The structure of everything is different than ours. Somebody took and did a little genetic manipulations. Now, if you want to call them gods, little g, I won't argue, the little higher up on the evolutionary scale, should they be worshipped? No. Respected? Yeah. Are they the big G God, God of the universe, the God that made you a living spirit? In fact, I was just having a discussion with my daughter this morning. I had made a little charm for one of my Facebook friends who has been like a sister to me. I made her a Danaan charm. And on it has the symbol of the Tuatha Danaans. And what that looks like is, picture a circle with the four quarters in it, cross in the middle. Mm-hmm. All right, that's the earth. That's Danu. That's Mother Earth. All right, but for the symbol of the Tuatha Danaan, run a line straight up and then put like a W on the top of that. And I always thought that looked like a person kind of holding up their hands in praise, standing on the earth. But it actually means something more than that. It is actually ancient runic symbolism. That W at the top was the rune they used to use for life force, for Sigel, what looks like a lightning bolt in the little more modern Norse runes. Mm-hmm. All right. It used to be kind of a W shape. So it was the life force coming down to the earth and, the people of the earth. All right. So the father of all spirits, as Enoch called him, and Mother Earth. We are a child of two parents. The Christians like to say it's Mother Mary or it could even be Eve or something. But it's kind of like, no, we're children. We're extraterrestrial and we're very terrestrial. When our spirit leaves this body breaks down into dirt, common dirt. Nothing unusual about it whatsoever. In fact, most of the dirt that you're tilling out in your garden is the bodies of many, many, many creatures before you. Mm-hmm. But that's what we are. It's not a matter of, whether you're Asian or Middle Eastern or you're Lutheran, Baptist, Catholic. This is some seriously petty stuff compared to what we are and what we're intended to be. And anybody that gets kind of caught up in that is in a trap. They're like a bee in a jar with just a little hole in it, and they can't find their way back out. Right, and they're going to suffocate in that jar. Mm-hmm. And that's what their master intends them to do.
Right. Yeah, it's a self-destruct sequence. Well, it's programming. Any way you look at it, it's
exactly.
Their thoughts, watching your thoughts, watching your actions. And if they don't match up, hear what they say and watch what they do, of course, to profile anybody. That's what I do.
Yep.
If it doesn't add up, something's afoot, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, without a doubt. I like the way you define the spirit and the soul, though, and I so resonate with that. But yeah, when we transfer out, I mean, and like you've said before, it's a continuous journey. It's a continuation.
Absolutely. We drop it. We keep going. Like I say, many souls. I really love those paranormal souls where they got their EM pods and all that other kind of stuff, and it's like that's true. I used to make these little things kind of like that when I was a boy, and I noticed that when I got my hand anywhere near the antenna, the static would increase or decrease depending on, my field would interact with the other field. And sometimes I'd sit there and I'd practice. I'd sit back where I wasn't giving any static and practice extending myself to the point where my spirit actually reached out of my hand far enough to make the static come on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn that you're more. Of course, I was raised as a witch, so you learn that you're more than just flesh, blood, and bone. A lot more. And we're taught. We used to discuss dreams, in the breakfast table while they're still fresh in your memory.
Nice.
And there are so many different aspects of them. And Grandma would discuss them, what it meant to us, or some of them would be prognostic, some of them would be things that we were mulling over, and you learn so much from these things. And some people do. Some people go out of their body in their dreams, and then you experience a fifth dimension rather than the four that you're used to seeing. And the more familiar you become with that, you start learning that the further out on the horizon you get, the more you can see. It's like, I remember camping up in the Rockies, and we'd lay out under the stars at night, and I'd just look up at the stars, and the longer I looked, the more deeper and more stars I saw. And it's kind of like that when you look up, and you're not caught in your little day-to-day grind trying to make your living. It all has to be in dollars and cents, or it isn't of any value whatsoever. And you learn that there's a great deal more than just the 4D, what you think is solid around you. You start seeing more and more.
Oh, absolutely. It comes to mind too when you were talking about. Well, you remember in the old days when you had an old-fashioned television, and of course the old bunny rabbit ears, and you could hold on to the antenna and change the signal and get a better signal. Remember?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, what does that tell you?
And that's your own electromagnetic field.
Right.
I can affect a bar magnet. I usually keep hanging on a string. Sometimes I use that for when something strange might be in the room, or when I just feel like working with my own spirit and my own energy, and just, it's like you work, you exercise your fingers and your hands and your legs and stuff when you take walks, but very few people exercise their own soul and spirit.
Right.
And I practice kind of changing the frequency of mine a little bit, trying to tune in more or tune out some, or, it's a much greater body that you have to handle than you're made aware of. And as long as you never learn that, you never get the power you're supposed to have, and they exercise power over you as if they were greater than you, when that is not true at all.
I so agree with you. Well, it's a vehicle one needs to learn to drive. That's the bottom line. And it's a blessing that you've been taught by your grandmother. I mean, that's quite the gift to come from that lineage where you can have immediate access and there's no condemnation to what you're experiencing. And that's huge.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, if you're born gifted with a starseed consciousness of some kind, and you come from a regular, I don't want to say Muggle family, but in terms of Harry Potter and the illusion of, I mean, literally, how are they going to understand that state of consciousness? How are they going to understand unless they've calibrated or experienced it?
I had met a young man back in the early 90s. Internet was very, very new. We had the FidoNet and stuff like that, Intellect. I used to be on an Intellect Paranormal Conference. There was a young man who lived in Los Angeles area, and his parents were, well, they were rocket scientists. They were engineers for Lockheed Martin, and they were social Christians. They went to church on Sundays. They weren't. This wasn't one of those real wild and crazy things. Well, in its own way, to me, it is. I mean, they were just kind of Lutherans and nothing fantastic about that. It was just kind of, it seemed to be more a social culture to them than anything else. But this young man, his name was David. And David had visions. He had things that would plague him, that would come out of his mirror at night and mess with him something awful. And he was on the verge of committing suicide. They took him to neurologists, psychologists, and all kinds of stuff, and they really couldn't figure out what the heck was wrong with him. He felt like he was letting his parents down and that the best thing he could do for them is die. But eventually somebody told him to get in contact with me, that I showed up on this paranormal conference thingy, and I was a witch, but I wasn't one that just talked about things. We did things. It's like, okay, I talk about it. Let's try this. We're going to experiment. I'm going to show you what I'm saying is real. I'm not just going to preach a good act to you or anything and then charge you $59.95 to make a magnet walk across the table or something. I'm not that kind of a person or soul. And so anyway, he got a hold of me, and we went to a psychic fair once, and I told him, why don't you get your aura picture taken? And sure enough, I had mine taken, he had his taken. As it turns out, both of us got these brilliant white auras. I mean, it almost obscures our faces and stuff. And it's kind of like, yeah, you know what your problem is? You're adept. But nobody ever taught you that. And you are, whether you like it or understand it or not. You are. And the things coming out of your mirror, they're coming out after you, because if they don't get you now and you come into your own power, you're going to be knocking them on their butts. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. They get you while you're weak and you're unsure of yourself. And this is what they were doing. They were beating him down. And I start teaching him a bit here and there, just, nothing fantastic, just basically like what's in my book, Their Practical Witchery. That knowledge is power. Once you know these things and understand what they are and where they're coming from, their power over you lessens and lessens and lessens. And your power to stand up for yourself increases. And I had a number of people back then that were like a half step away from suicide. And they were good people. And there's nothing wrong with them. Mm-hmm. The fact that they see outside of what they were told is right to see was a good thing.
Absolutely.
And that's about when I start recognizing this and then start realizing, I owe them. To whom much is given, of them shall much be required. Jesus actually said that. It's a very Christian thing to do. However, most Christians call me a heretic and a monster and a devil worshiper and for getting people involved in witchcraft, the craft of the wise. Yeah. I don't like them being stupid and being dumb sheep for somebody to shear or turn into mutton and lamb chops.
Right. Self-empowerment is huge. Well, they've called me the daughter of Satan before, so don't feel.
Yeah.
Oh, don't be offended.
I get it all the time. But the whole thing is the God, the Father of all spirits, Mother Earth, they want you to grow up.
Right.
Look what we're doing to the world around us, that if we were wiser, even Jesus says, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Well, I'm just passing out the wisdom, just kind of get it, pick it up. What you do with it yourself is your own business. If you do evil with it, well, guess what? It's not without consequences. It's never without consequences. Even if you do good, it's not without consequences.
Right. And of course, there's malicious intent. And when you get down to rituals in a state of consciousness, it's really about belief systems, intent, affirmations. I mean, everything you think, you manifest, as we all know. So even people who aren't into the craft, they're doing a form of ritual every single day.
They do it everybody practices a craft. Everybody practices spellcraft. Every church, every Christian, when you get together, a spell is a period of time, like a rainy spell, a dizzy spell, a warm spell, set a spell. It's a period of time where an influence or a group of influences are brought to bear to accomplish a desired goal. So let's say, hey, in your church group, hey, Aunt so-and-so is sick, and we'd like to pray God's blessings on her for her to get well soon, and her continued well-being. So you get together. All right. Now you're using ritual. You got your stained glass, your candles, all that kind of good stuff there to kind of set the atmosphere. You're trying to draw in the influence of the Holy Spirit, God, and agreeing in prayer that this should be so. You just brought an influence from outside yourself to bear on a desired goal for Aunt Tilly to get better of her gout or lupus or whatever she's got. But everybody does spells. Mm-hmm. Even if you're young and you've got that significant other coming over to the house for dinner, and you clean up the house, you want to make it look nice. You want to set the stage. You pick out a nice sweet red wine. You pick out strawberries and chocolates because they got aphrodisiac qualities. We're going to pick out a sweet music. We're going to use candlelight because it's going to soften our features. We're going to choose clothes that accent our best features. And we're going to draw the eye close. And the candlelight is going to set off the sparkles in the eye. And we're going to draw these people to ourselves. And when we take all of these influences together, we hold them spellbound.
You're so right.
And the desired goal, we get lucky before the night's over. And we didn't rely on luck. We made our own. That's what a witch does.
Right. There's a little witch in everybody.
There is.
No doubt. So no pointing fingers, everybody.
Absolutely. All use it. Every one of you. It's just about time you learned what it was and use it right.
Yeah, it's a state of consciousness when you think about it. It's just setting energy in motion.
That's right. You're bringing influences to bear to accomplish a desired goal. Quit being such a cripple. Don't allow circumstances to master you. You master the circumstances. That's what makes a witch a witch. You don't necessarily have to call upon demons or gods or anything else like that to do that. There's other things, there's other influences that you could bring to bear. All kinds of influences, if you really open your eyes and look around you, that you can bring to bear to help you with a lot of goals that you have. Now, remember, if you're setting aside just some plain evil goals or very selfish goals, there are going to be long-term consequences for these things. Even when you do good things. When I do a thing like wrote that book and then put it out there for free, look, get your power back from these evil masters and become, get on your road to growing up like you were intended. Well, there's a lot of good karma to be got by that. This is like money in the bank that the IRS can never touch and the Rothschilds can never take away from you. This is power that I take with me after I drop this skin suit. There's always consequences, and this is a consequence that I quite cheerfully take with me. It's like, yes, I want you to get better. I want to act like a good brother, a good sibling. We have the same mother, earth, nature. We have the same father, the father of all spirits. If I know more than you, I'm just an elder brother. We're on the same road. I'm just a little further down that road. I know the neighborhood. I can give you a map.
Absolutely. Well said, indeed. And we're going to head for a break. We'll be right back, everybody. Please stay tuned with John Stormm on Hyperspace, Dark Matter Radio Network. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Solaris BlueRaven. This is Hyperspace, and we're here on the Dark Matter Radio Network. And my special guest this evening is John Stormm. And John, are you with me?
Yes, I am.
All right. I'd like to get into tonight, for the last hour, a little bit of the summoning, talk about the summoning in general, and what to not summon, perhaps. And also maybe we can touch base on some of the technical hardware you've been exposed to with MK Ultra later on at the end of the show. But let's talk about summoning in general. Now, a lot of people have a misperception when it comes to summoning. So let's give them a rundown insofar as what that entails.
Well, For a lot of witches, a lot of mages, I'd say the overwhelming majority of them, they will usually they will lay down a circle of salt, and they will fill it with certain symbols or sigils and intent. And there's a reason for this. When something spiritual enters the room, you got to understand that your body, your physical body, is not as material as you've been led to believe. Like I say, your atomic structure is 99.99999% empty space, but it is filled, it's not entirely empty space. It is filled with your spirit or your soul, or sometimes other spirits as well, sometimes many other spirits in the case of some people. So you lay down this crystalline circle, you fill it with intent, and this oftentimes has what they call, if you're a student of the Golden Dawn, which incidentally has been the Rothschilds' personal coven since its inception. So, take that as a caveat. Beware of what you learn from there. There's a lot of traps in that stuff. People like Crowley would use what they call the tetragrammaton, the name of 4 letters, Yahi-Vahi, or what the Jews would call Jehovah, the name of God. You're essentially claiming to have that authority of God. And what's really happening, or at least as far as the spirits that you're summoning, when they come into the room, is you have the authority of God coloring your aura. Your aura extends out a ways from your body, and it carries a lot of the colors and things that make you you. But we've just added something to it when you stepped inside this circle. So when most magicians will summon a spirit, they will prepare their circle and their environment first, then they will summon the spirit in, and they can be very impressed with them. This is how they feel that they can give them orders and stuff, because they've just colored their aura with an authority they don't necessarily really have. So before they leave the room or step outside of that circle, they have to banish that spirit away so that he cannot see them as they really are when they step outside that circle. Otherwise, they become what's known in the craft as, how to put this delicately, lunch. So, I mean, they'll call upon a lot of things. Now, with any spirit, often, they're going to have their own agenda no matter who they are. They don't come labeled, even Lucifer was an angel of light. He was a very beautiful and lovely angel. He, wasn't in a big red union suit with goat's feet and horns. That was actually somebody else somewhere down the line. But that kind of got taken from him. Everything kind of got labeled as all of this and all of that. And that was, organized religion having done that. They took all the mythos and just kind of rolled it into one big nasty blanket there. But summoning a spirit is kind of like, well, how do you want to do it? Well, you can stand out on a street corner in a short dress and high heels and go, "Hey, sailor," and you can summon a spirit. It's got meat surrounding it, but you're summoning a spirit. What kind of spirit? Well, you'll find out when you get to talk to him. Do you know him? Well, you're summoning a stranger. This is why, when somebody tells you, don't do it, it's kind of like, well, that's pretty good advice as a general rule. But sometimes in your own home, if you happen to live in a house that's haunted or frequented by such, you might not really have the greatest choice in that. You might have to meet what you're dealing with and either send it on its way or decide who's going to be boss.
What about entity imposters? So in other words, they're trying to summon some deity and it comes in as something that's lying to them and it is not the deity.
Oh, that happens a lot. That'll happen in any bar where you go to pick up a good date. The guy's going to come to you and tell you he's one thing when he's actually another. This is not a strange concept. Like I say, when people start talking about things as supernatural or paranormal, they're talking about things as if it's something else, and it's not. it's a much bigger universe, but it's not all that different. Well, it's supernatural, so that means it's either a demon or it's an angel. There's nothing else in between. That's very two-dimensional in what we know, even physicists know as to be at least 10 or 11 dimensional, and I think possibly even more than
It's
that.
infinite. Yeah, I believe
Right.
it's infinite.
Yeah, I tend to think so too. When it's all said and done. But if we can just get people to deal with that much and understand that it's not just 2 or 3 that they like to believe, we'll be getting somewhere. People will actually be growing and progressing a little bit. But that's true of any spirit. Sometimes, a spirit in a house, it could even be a human spirit. Will want to make you believe that he's something or something that he's not. Maybe he's got a certain amount of guilt of what he was or what he feels he is, or maybe he feels, like he's terrible and he's evil and he's actually, been duped or something like that. There's so many stories to this and so many ways it can go. There's no two-dimensional way of looking at it. They're either right or wrong or this or that. It's like, no, you're going to have to deal with each case as it comes. What are they posing as if they're not posing? What do they want? Do they want you in submission? Don't.
Right.
I don't care who they are. I found that out for myself. I mean, even if we're talking about Jesus, even the Jesus mentioned in the New Testament was meek. They said he wouldn't even put out a smoking flax or harm a fly or anything. He never asserted himself on people. He was, follow me. He gave you a choice. You could come, you could stay. You don't have to. And I mean, there's examples of people going either way, and some saying no and then coming later, and some saying yeah and falling away. And the spectrum is infinite. But I mean, even Jesus isn't going to force you. It says whosoever will. In other words, you're exercising your will, your own desire. It's your choice. Everything about your life is your choice. Somebody say that you have some Nephilim ancestry. Well, I got news for you. A great many of us got Nephilim ancestry. Mine is full of it. Mm-hmm. And I remember people telling me when I was younger that there's no way somebody, that God would ever allow someone like me to survive or live forever or, live eternally and, in the cosmos and stuff like that. And I'd go to my grandma feeling bad about this and like I'm some kind of monster. I also had MK Ultra to deal with too. And they were just kind of capitalizing on this alienation type thing. But my grandma used to tell me that my whole life is about choices. It doesn't matter what I was born. If I was a full-blooded Nephilim or anything, it's my choice to be the soul that I want to be. In this is how God and Goddess, Lord and Lady are glorified. Who and what do you choose to be? Do you choose to just kind of live down in the gutter, or do you choose to reach for the stars? In that is the glory, your choice, your personal choice. If you choose to become the bond slave and thrall of another, that was also your choice.
Right.
And those are your consequences. Mm-hmm. I say get up, shake it off.
Oh, yeah. Get rid of that skin, so to speak. And of course, it's a state of consciousness, but I did want to touch base on entities. We talked about the entities in general, but what about possession? And of course, now there's a weaponization of technology, which can simulate, as you know, psychotronic warfare, synthetic telepathy, as I've talked about before. I've been a test pilot for the technology, so I know it's real. And you've been
basically you just got to run an EM field to a certain frequency and place it inside the frequency that you are. Remember, your soul and your spirit is an EM field,
right,
of its own. It has its own specific frequency and resonance. So does Mother Earth. We call it the Schumann resonance. Mars has a different resonance. Jupiter has a different resonance. Venus, all the stars have their own resonance. They have their own consciousness, even as you have yours. Now, as for possession, if I astral project to where you're sitting, I can possess you probably only for a very little time, where I can influence you. I can get my spirit to stand in the same spot your body's standing in. But the same is true for creatures greater than myself. All right. They're stronger. This is why when you have people who are possessed by demons or such like that, sometimes they have their lucid moments. This demon cannot hold on to you forever or day and night without end. He gets tired. It requires effort to stay there and to keep you beaten down. I mean, even if you were holding the baby, you couldn't hold the baby forever without having to set him down. He's a lot weaker than you, but you can hold him and make his hands and legs move any way you want them to move, like a puppet. But over time, you're going to have to put the baby down. And the same is true of anything possessing somebody else. They will have their lucid moments. Now, generally, what most witches do when we have this position is we'll bring in a spirit that we know that is stronger than the other and use that to cast the other ones out. But sometimes we have spirits stronger than the other. They can be made to grow strong. In our clan, there's a thing that a witch's power is based on their unbroken will and word. And you'll oftentimes see witches make this little sign, 2 fingers under their eyes, will and word. When you're watching me, my will or my word, if I gave you my word to do something, whether you're watching me or not, or powers invisible are watching me or not, I am doing exactly what I said I would, and I am exercising my unbroken will and word. And this often gives me power over, like I say, I'll tell most demons where to go, and I'll mean it, and I can bring other influences to bear too. I can use artifacts, I can use a number of things, and sometimes I can call certain other phase spirits to come to my aid, and sometimes even angelic spirits. It depends on who you got much street creds with,
right,
by the choices you've made in your life. My choice not to get rich selling books and hoodoos for people, but rather give them their own power and put it in their own hands to serve, Lord and Lady, to serve their God as they will. And grow up, that gives me a certain amount of street cred with some very good critters.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, coming from the spectrum of altars with MK Ultra, and of course we know that they usually condition a target to create altars and synthesize these altars. Now, how would you know the difference between a full-blown possession, versus a created altar by an underground?
Ooh, that is difficult too.
Yeah.
There's going to be a certain degree more dimensionality of the other spirit than there is an altar. An altar is a fraction of your own spirit. It's I've had mine kind of broken down, but all of mine are still connected. To give you an example of how that works, when I used to have to do like an assassin job. Now these were jobs that I had to agree with, incidentally. But I had a certain amount of autonomy, especially being a first generation ultra. They didn't want to ruin me. There's certain talents I got. They didn't want to play with my brain too much to make me lose function of any of these talents. But there's a certain mindset that I'd go into, a certain personality. You'd see the change, the look in my eye, everything would change in that instant, and I would become very professional. I'd remember everything I was taught in martial arts or shooting a gun or whatever the case may be. And sometimes we were cross-trained. I had to be like a field medic. And when emergencies come and somebody'd get a hole blown in them or something like that, I'd become very calm and a calming personality, very clinical, very dispassionate. I'm not going to get upset or worried because I will not save anybody's lives or even my own that way. And I would become very clinical. Everything that I was taught about medicine and patching people up and that is going to come to the forefront of my brain. And I am going to be this this person, the medic. I'm going to be the doctor, or I'm going to be the assassin, or I'm going to be, maybe I have to adopt a certain personality to get into here or there. I have to become this person, speak Russian or German or whatever language that I was trained in to do this particular job, and for that time become this persona. The difference between me and like the generations beyond me was that I was still underneath, still the other person, but that person was kind of buried a little bit. He's still listening to everything and seeing everything that's going on, but in some cases it's kind of like, that's only a fraction of who I am. Look at a human soul as like a faceted gem. And each facet is slightly different color. It has a slightly different character, but it's one part of an overall whole. Now, if you got another squirrel in the attic, so to speak, another spirit is there, that isn't going to be just a facet or part of something. His dimensionality is going to be more so. My doctor persona is not going to be romantic. My assassin's persona isn't going to be either. It's going to be very focused, very intense, very predatory. And that's all that I need right then and there. Anything else will confuse the issue, and I will not be able to accomplish my mission, successfully. I will hinder myself. I'll get in my own way. But when you have these others, now they tend to be more multidimensional than just four-dimensional. So there's things they're going to know that you couldn't possibly know with just your normal, like I say, 5 dogmatic senses. There's going to be more to them than that. And that's really going to creep you out. Mm-hmm. I mean, it kind of creeps people out when you see them go into one altar or another. But that's just a fraction of who they are. It's their own personality split off into little fragments and then brought out as an entire person.
Right. And I wonder how much of that, especially if they've gone through MK Ultra, is a past life personality perhaps that's surfaced, that's been embedded in the cellular design, or was it, just completely created by the handler?
Actually, I believe it's there in you to begin with. Mm-hmm. And the handlers are just kind of finding it, and they determine, during the course of this, what kind of ultra you're going to be. Some make better sex spies or whatever, or sex slaves, or some are better assassins, some are better iconographs, the MK Monarch thing. Now, most of our stars and heroes and celebrities are idols of the 60s and 70s, where MK Monarch, they were groomed for that. And people wondered, well, why did people like Marilyn Monroe kill herself or something like that? Because she was Norma Jean. You didn't know Norma Jean. All you knew was Marilyn. Everybody adored Marilyn. Marilyn this, Marilyn that. Nobody knew Norma. Nobody gave a damn about how she felt or whether she was used or whether she was loved. How sad would you feel if everybody thought you were someone else and nobody knew who you are, but yet they're looking at you and talking to you as if you're somebody else all the time?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Of course,
so they find this in you. Now, some of this would be yourself in touch with your past, your little racial memory or genetic memory, things like that. And, and they would take that and say, well, this is good clay to mold. They didn't put it in there. They just took what was there and molded it to their purposes.
Mm-hmm. Right. And why do you think spirits possess in general? I mean, not to backtrack, but I just wanted to cover that because I was going to ask you.
Power.
Just power. Okay.
Power. It gives them more power in this particular realm. They get to affect this realm more. There's a spiritual agenda going on. There's a lot of dark masters in here that's drawing a lot of these creatures into this plane. Interesting point of fact. In one of my books, it's called Parting the Veil of Worlds. And it is not a fantasy. It is an actual account of kind of a summoning that we did on a what was it? It was a solstice, summer solstice, and we opened a rift, a curtain, a hole in a curtain space-time continuum into the plane of Gwynedd, where the brighter spirits live, and I used a quartz crystal to resonate it with light and my own energy. Well, right around the millennium, if you want to look it up, there was all these world leaders and celebrities and that showed up at the Cheops Pyramid for a very specific millennial New Year celebration. They had put a quartz and gold capstone on the Cheops Pyramid, while priests inside conducted a ceremony, a summoning. And like I say, all of these world leaders and celebrities, idols, gods, goddesses, sex gods, sex goddesses, hey, little g, you know, we're all there. And anybody who was anybody was there at that millennial New Year's celebration. And a portal was opened, just like I opened, using the same kind of technology and that I used to open that plane to Gwynedd for Sundog to come out and all that, that you see in that story. Some darker things come out to the plane that they open into. And nearly everybody at that particular extravaganza went home with an extra squirrel in the attic. They went home with baggage. And from then on, we saw our entire world get exponentially worse. The atrocities they committed, the things that the politicians just do now without batting an eye. I mean, they were always kind of bad, but now they just do more and more, and it's kind of like, yeah, those buildings just fell straight down in their own footprint. Yeah, the fire just did that. It's like, listen, it's physically impossible. But well, we said that's what it's going to be, and we're not answering for it, and nobody's going and arresting any of these people for, you know, they murdered over 3,000 Americans and got away with it. It's like, you think that could have happened without little extra boost from a darker plane and some priests doing that on purpose?
You know, when evil becomes the norm, something's very, very wrong, wouldn't you say?
That's where we're at right now, which is one of the main reasons I want to take power back and put it into your own hand.
And negate the spell word.
Any of you.
Right.
I don't want to be anybody's ruler. I mean, if you said you could be president of America tomorrow, I'd walk away. You know, it's not my place. In fact, in my day, or actually it's before my day, back in ancient times, witches crowned kings. We didn't become them.
Right.
Merlin was Arthur's like great granduncle or something like that. He was a Pendragon, just like Arthur was. He had every right to take the crown himself, but he was a druid, and he wouldn't. So he brought up Arthur. He cultivated Arthur to be the king. You know,
exactly.
And that was the way we did things once upon a time. And things have kind of gotten out of hand, and people are kind of making their own rules. And I say, okay, it's time for you to throw these rules off, because these rules have got very oppressive, and it's just there to make you meat cattle for somebody else. They're not there for your benefit at all. They're not obeying any of those rules, but they insist that you do, and they'll do all kinds of things for you if you just so much as pick a leaf from the wrong plant, or maybe own an eagle's feather without their permission.
Or collect rainwater.
They've gotten so far out of hand. They wouldn't have been able to do this before then.
I agree. Yeah, there's definitely, well, it's like a Pandora's box. I mean, literally, and I noticed this too.
Exactly.
I've noticed it. Yeah, absolutely. Especially, you know, I know the technological beast they use. I know their electronic god, and I'm very familiar with the covert technology. So, you know, you put it all together with a bunch of bad attitudes and a bad group of people, and you've got a mess.
Yeah, and if you you know, when you don't have the other entities to answer for you, well, you can create an EM field that's going to have this oppressive nature to it, to bring people to about where you want them. Now, incidentally, when you know you're being controlled, you can fight it. You know, a witch's power is in their unbroken will and word. People have to learn to keep their word, and in doing so, they exercise their own will. And you can fight anything, and you should be prepared to. You should have that attitude. If it means my freedom or something like that, we're going to fight. If I got to drop this skin, well, this part is only a small part of my eternal life anyway. You know, like the Vikings, the Norse, and well, even the Celts believed if I die fighting, this is not a bad thing. I'm not talking necessarily about going nuts out there with a gun or a sword or anything. I'm talking about resisting, fighting. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical thing. More often, it's a spiritual thing that is weighing you down or oppressing you and burdening you with things you don't need.
Right? It's a psychic war. I mean, any way you look at it, it's a psychic war.
Yeah. And you have to be prepared for it. You're going to have to be a psychic warrior. Right back. You're going to have to fight. You're going to have to learn how to fight, or you're going to be fodder.
Yeah, and the moral to this is don't summon anything you cannot control. You know, a lot of these people, like you were talking about that ceremony, I mean, they're bringing stuff in. I mean, obviously not ascended in consciousness enough to even understand what they're doing.
No, well, the people who did it knew what they were doing. Well, at least to some extent. I think even ultimately the people that are ruling this, what I call this the golden age of warlocks. It certainly is. You know, they've never had more power than they do right now, and create more atrocities than they do right now. But I lost my train of thought.
That's
there.
Okay. Go back.
But I mean, you know, they up to a point, they will, if you grasp what I wrote in that book, and you just start running with it and going with it and moving on as a growing, evolving soul, your potential is so much greater. They are earthbound or worse. All right. Their whole idea of power is money and these worthless little talismans and solid gold, which isn't nearly so solid. The real valuable things in the universe are the souls of men. And it's like, if you can set them free, this is greater than than turning the whole freaking planet into gold. You know, you're so much, your potential to become so much more than they are or ever will be is incredible. And I don't care who you are. You know, it's doable. It's there. It's yours. You got to reach out and choose it for yourself. I'm not going to lead you. I'll give you what instructions I can, and you just mess with them. You learn them. You practice them. I've given an example of a training thing. We used to do this with our children. Still do it. It's called the itch. Now, anything that you can feel, you can transmit. And as children, you know, we teach them this little, well, you know, they got to behave. We're in the doctor's office in the waiting room, and they got to be quiet and quit squirming and anything like that. So we teach them to, well, imagine an itch on the right side of your nose and put it on that person over there. And when they reach up and scratch it, that was you that did that. All right. Now, this is one of these little fundamentals of also doing what people call magic. It seems like magic to them, but to us, we know it since we were children. And you know, these are things, you know, you have to work for yourself. You have to do this. You have to practice it. I got this itch on my nose. Don't reach up and scratch it, but it itches. Don't reach up and scratch it. Tell yourself you will not be satisfied until that person over there reaches up and scratches that itch. It's their itch. Give it to them. And, you know, it's like, okay, now you're not going to get intensely bad karma for making this person's nose itch. Okay, so, you know, you're not really doing anything all that bad or anything like that. Maybe a little mischievous or something, but it's really not bad. But you're also building up abilities. You're becoming more familiar with muscles that you were taught never to use. And it's these traits, anything you feel you can project, is the same traits that they use, that they consider, these blue bloods consider as their mandate to rule, their mandate from heaven, the Chinese call it. Their mandate to rule, because they can. They can get up there and lie to you, get caught in scandal after scandal after scandal, lie after lie after lie. But the minute they stand up on that podium and make a pronouncement, people are falling all over themselves like they just heard this from God's own lips. Mm-hmm. And it's to be trusted and expect. Well, I'm voting for him because he said he was going to do this, that, and the other thing for me. And it's like, did he ever do any of the other things he said he was going to do for you ever? No. But you believe him now. Why? Because he has something that you've been atrophied.
Mm-hmm. Yep. People don't realize their own power. And once again, it is about the souls. The souls are infinite, immortal, and ascended when they choose to be.
Yes. Yes.
Nobody's taught them. John, nobody teaches the language of light and consciousness. I mean, whatever you want to call it. I mean, they don't understand it.
Well, I tried.
I know you do. And I appreciate it. I really, really do. I have so much respect for you, which is why I love to have you on my show. And I do encourage people to pick up your books. And of course, you do have the Witch Clan series.
Yes, actually, all of those, even the fantasies, are based off of. When I originally started writing Matriarch of the Witch Clan, well, the first couple chapters was a chapter that I wrote for a mentor of mine who was teaching me how to write commercially. She was like she was a romance novelist. She had like 13 or 36 some odd romance novels she wrote that all won awards and stuff, and she did my editing for me, but I wanted to tell people what a witch was, or at least the kind of witches that I grew up among. People would say, well, you grew up as a witch. It must have been like the Addams family in your house. And it's kind of like, no, it was actually pretty far from it. And we weren't gruesome people. I mean, there's things we talk about you'd probably, the average person wouldn't talk about, or because you just don't know, and you don't know it in the same context that we know it in, and it's a very practical context, and I bring that out in my stories. The individual chapters, the fantasy is kind of how the whole story got put together, but the individual chapters are kind of like they're family stories. They're stories that have been in our family for years, things we actually do and have done. I just kind of put them together so you'd have a picture of what it was like growing up in my grandma's house with me back in the 50s. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you'll get actual craft in there as to what we're about. I mean, it'll be entertaining. Some are long stories or full-length novels like Matriarch or Warrior. Practical Witchery is full-length. Little story like Pixie Dust is only like 5,000 words or so. Some of the stories are a little longer, novellas. But all of them have those basics, the same basics, true-to-life characters, because they are true-to-life characters.
Mm-hmm. And of course, now, why did the feds take it down?
Witchclan.com?
Right.
I had opened up forums after forums. Originally, it was supposed to be like a communication nexus for our clan, for our own clan. A lot of us travel. Melanie would travel around the world singing, and Jonathan travels with the military, and numbers of us are all over the place. And it's like any place you can reach a Wi-Fi or internet, you can get on here. And hidden in there, if you log on, you won't see it unless you log on, and your family, you won't see the little family forums where we post what we're doing, where we're at, who we want to contact, or whatever. But I started opening up. Well, okay, now there's a special forum for just people that's interested in paranormal. I mean, that shows up easily. But if you're a serious witch, and we know you're a serious witch, and you want to talk about serious spellcraft, we had a witches forum that was not available to just the general public, where you wouldn't get hassled. Don't you guys know that's Satan, and all that kind of crap. We had things like that. Well, eventually there was things like the Norway spiral. Well, I had friends in Norway that told me within hours of when that was happening. And I start doing research right away. And I narrowed it down to right exactly where that spiral came from. Ice cat. Everybody has this. Well, I also posted stuff to the news agencies here in America that it was happening, when it was happening, with links to the Norwegian sites and everything, but they didn't touch it for 72 hours. And then they come up with this lame excuse it was a Russian missile. And it's kind of like, look, the ocean where the subs were is in the other direction than that little beam you see going down behind that mountain in that one picture. And if you trace that on Google Maps, you'll find Ice Cat, capital E, capital I, capital S, CAT. That is a base, and it's kind of like, look, they weren't keeping that information from the Russians because the Russians and the Chinese also own a piece of that technology there. They're kind of like, they're invested in it.
Right.
All right. And they had scheduled a brownout to draw the power to make that spiral at exactly that time that morning. So I posted exactly what that was. And then I start covering a bunch. I made a political forum, and I called it Rants, Raves, and Ruckuses. And, anytime something came out and it turned out to be a bunch of hoodoo, I pretty much told it wasn't like what it was. And it became a very popular forum. And eventually they just took it over and shut. They were attacking it all the time. I couldn't go away for a weekend without having to re-put the thing up Monday when I come back in.
Oh, wow.
But eventually they just took it entirely.
Well, I guess you were too close to the mark on that, huh?
I was pretty close to the mark on all of it. In fact, at one point I wanted to get my own passport. So I knew they were monitoring us, and I went into one of the private forums that nobody else had access to, and I put down on there, if you don't people don't get me a birth certificate and some kind of ID so I can get my own passport and travel when I want to, I am going to sing like a freaking canary about what I know. And this was about MK Ultra, and eventually George Bush come to town, and Secret Service come over, and they had a birth certificate for me.
Oh,
Mine's it's about as authentic as Obama's, and I mean that exactly like I'm saying it. It was just government made. The only thing accurate on there was my birth date and my first name, my mother's maiden name. But they took me down to the post office, and I got a passport. And the first time I tried to use it, I got banned from Canada.
Wow.
I just went to visit my grandsons, and they turned me right around at the border. I thought, wow, I got this brand new passport. I was going to emigrate to Wales. I had a girlfriend out there, and it's like they did everything. I can't even leave the country, get on a plane or anything. The whole thing was flagged. So finally, I start talking more to Duncan. I says, okay, we're going to go public with this. Why not? It just wasn't worth, they're too full of crap, and they're doing too many murderous things. And it's about time we just blew the cover off the whole thing. Quit playing along with it. It just makes you one of them.
Right. Well, and MK Ultra has been around forever, as people know. I mean, although it's become more and more technical now, but still, I mean, so you guys did actually go ahead and go public.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We didn't actually see I mean, I've tried talking. I've been in it since 1953.
Right.
But you didn't get the Freedom of Information Act until somewhere around towards the mid 70s. And around 73, well, Richard Helms knew that was coming about, so he started destroying all the personnel files, the people that were involved in the experiments and stuff that he could. Among that was mine, my birth certificate, school records, military records, all of it was all burned. They says, well, there was a fire and the records were destroyed. Yeah, it was in Helms' wastebasket. And he even admitted it at the 77 hearing. But try to, it's kind of, well, isn't that illegal? Shouldn't that guy be, in a tangerine colored jumpsuit with shackles in the prison somewhere? Like, no. Then again in 95, Bill Clinton apologized. I'm sorry, but I saw children die and worse. You're what? You're sorry?
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many evil things. I remember when I had you on before, I remember you talked and you said, this is as close to hell as I'll ever get. And I thought that was a really
Exactly.
good statement. I really
Yeah.
do. And I hope so for everybody. I hope this is as close to hell as we'll ever get, because it feels like it sometimes, an
Right. And
illusion
I
of hell.
want you all to get what information you can and rise above it. You got nowhere to go but up.
Right.
But you need your own power to do that. If you let them hold you down, you let them boss you and browbeat you and oppress you, then this is going to be where you're going to be at forever, and it will be hell.
Right. Well,
There
that's what
is
they're,
better.
yeah. Oh, I agree. And it's a state of consciousness. Once again, I think that, there's too much evil, as we talked about, and not
Hmm.
enough, what I would say, love. I mean, the illusion of love, unconditional love, higher consciousness, compassion for animals, the
Right.
planet, the people, your neighbors. I mean, whoever. There's this craziness that's going on where people are just spiking up and getting very hostile. And I don't have to tell you this, but I have noticed it.
Yeah.
And I usually keep a pretty positive attitude, but I do see it. There's no doubt.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And well, you'll see it also among, especially among a lot of the ultra crowd too. I'm not saying I'm beyond it. I say generally when I recognize it, I kind of put the kibosh on it. When
Hmm.
I start recognizing certain feelings cropping up or certain ideas and stuff like that, I have a series of questions and I have my own protocol, that I observe for governing my life and making my own choices, and I've had to go by it almost religiously, and that's probably the only good context you'll ever hear me use religion in.
Well, well, you have to shadow yourself, and that's what I call it. I call it a shadowing. You literally have to shadow your behavior and
Yeah,
recognize what's yours and what's not. Now, that could be
absolutely.
energetic, but that can also be a program. And of
Well,
course,
yeah, that there one of the things inscribed above the door to the temple of the Delphi Oracle was know thyself. Once you know you, you kind of begin to know, what kind of person, who do I admire and why do I admire them? Because those are the qualities I most want in myself. Do you admire evil people? Rotten people, or do you admire better people? Do you really, be like them? That's your choice. You can be like that. You can be that person. You don't have to be that person. You're your own person. But those qualities could be your qualities if you choose them and you cultivate them in yourself. If you plant thistles, you're going to get thistles. If you plant corn, you're going to get corn. You know a tree by its fruit. It may say something else. It may say oranges, but there's apples growing on it. Guess what? It's not an orange tree. No matter what the sign says, you know it by its fruit. The same with ourselves. I learn what's not me, and you'll see that among the ultras a lot. Sometimes they get, when they get to where they start beginning to agree with one another and start where they're going to join forces and actually get somewhere, something always happens. Somebody gets triggered one way or another, and then next thing you know, you see this little speck come out of nowhere and nobody knows why. uh, but that's part of the conditioning. That's part of the stuff you've been talking about that's doing that, because they know that once we get to the point where we can come together like fingers of one mighty fist, there's nothing in this world that could stop us from accomplishing anything we want, as opposed to what they want.
right? Yeah, it's divide and conquer. That's their whole idea, and that's what's been going
Absolutely.
on with, of course, we see it in America a lot too with people in general.
Yes. Yeah, they keep playing one faction against another, and you got to realize, look, I don't care what color your skin comes in, what it's wrapped in, whether it's a sarong, a serape, a burqa, a business suit, blue jeans, or whatever. When I look into your eyes, I see a soul, and we all belong. Every bird, every animal, every human being, and I don't care whether you recognize their colors or not. Everything is a soul of some sort, different varieties, different brightness, like the stars. No two are exactly alike, but we all belong in this greater picture. That includes even if you're looking into a pair of big black oval eyes. We're all a part of a much greater picture. We all belong.
Right.
Uh, you know, uh, uh,
Galactic neighborhood, John. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's a much bigger neighborhood, and you just can't get petty about it. You got to just learn that okay, we're all related. Like the Lakota Sioux say, "Mitakuye Oyasin," we are all of us related, or all my relations.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think the biggest thing is to negate the spell work that's been done and the illusion of. I mean, just kind of deprogram. Everybody needs to deprogram to some degree. And of
Right.
course,
Once you understand that, you don't accept it anymore.
right, it's not
Once
productive.
upon a time when people advertised something, they did it honestly. Their word was their bond. And they said, this is our new printing machine. It'll print out cards. It'll print them out in any color. You got so many inks you can work with. You can set the movable type. You can buy this for $15.95, and this is what it will do. And that's what an advertisement looked like. If you ever read some of the old turn of the century advertisements. But if you look at any advertisement today, they talk about your social life, your sex life, you'll be so much happier if you have this. Ask your doctor about this. Don't even know what it does, but you're not going to be happy or appealing to the opposite sex unless you have one. But you don't know what it does or why you need it, but they just tell you need it, and therefore you got to go out and buy one right away. But when you recognize this kind of programming, it turns you off right away. Mm-hmm. Don't do that to me. Don't treat me like I'm an idiot, because I'm not, or I'm a sheep. Now there's a lot who are. Mm-hmm. And when they stop acting like that and we reach that tipping point, their power ends, our power begins. And it becomes a whole different paradigm, a whole different world with newer possibilities and greater possibilities.
Mm-hmm. We certainly need one, I think, anyway. And of course, we're pretty good on time in the illusion of. Now, you talked a little bit about your MRIs having some anomalous images, and I was wondering if you could cover that.
Oh, wow. I got a bunch of them. And I've been wanting to get together with other people that have been like, all right, now I'm an ultra. I got a load of different hardware. I wish we had slides or the ability to do slides on this show. Mm-hmm. But because I got some pictures, I got a whole album of my MRIs on my Facebook page. If you want to friend me on Facebook, I still got plenty of room for friends, and you can look at them for yourself. Look through my albums. You're going to find some very, very interesting pictures. For the MRIs, you're going to find some fascinating stuff deep into my brain there's no way humanly possible anybody could put that in there, and much less without leaving major scars or killing me outright. Mm-hmm. So it's obviously something beyond that. There's a lot of it, a lot more than I ever suspected. If somebody had told me, I wouldn't have believed it. I'd have figured one or two and somewhere near the surface, but not what you see on those pictures. But I'd love to see some MRIs. People got to start demanding these things, because they didn't want to show. They lied to the judge. They lied to my lawyers about them for my disability case. And I had to go down there and literally dominate two people to get a copy of my own CD-ROM of my MRIs and stuff. But I did it, and I'm glad I did. Now, there's people that I was reading a thing Roger put up about this lady around the area of Area 51. She snaps a couple pictures of this UFO, and then she has a blackout for about a half hour or so and doesn't recall what happened. Mm-hmm. And I've been getting these blackouts, and I'm kind of wondering, does some of this technology in my skull have something to do with this? Is like a control mechanism? Mm-hmm. And I would be interested in comparing MRIs with anyone who's got them that's had an abductee experience, or an MK Ultra or MK Monarch, or any kind of oddball experience, but find out they got foreign objects in their head.
Right.
Because I'd like to determine exactly what does what.
Right. Well, I have some that were created through transmission. I have a signal anomaly, and that's been measured, and I have that on a documentary. And I will say, if you guys want to go ahead and contact John Stormm on Facebook, it's John, but it's Storm, Stormm. There's two M's in there, right, John?
Yep. Yeah. Same way when looking up my books. There's some for sale on Amazon, paperbacks, but I never really get a dime of that. Get the freebies on bookricks.com. I'd rather not make thieves richer. Right. I'd rather they not get a dime. You're welcome. You have my express permission as the author to print them out on your own color printer and make, punch holes in them and put them in a binder or whatever to have your own hard copies. Feel free. The knowledge is power, and I put it there to put it in your own hands as any good brother or sister would do.
Yeah, we appreciate that big time. And I will say one thing about those implants, a lot of them are being created by or through transmission of signal, and I'm sure you're aware of that. So sometimes, if you're wondering, well, how can these things get in there? And we're not talking little RF, ID chips or anything like that. We're talking about something else. It's usually done through the transmission of the signal, and there's also the neural interface with artificial intelligence and of course, artificial telepathy, which I'm very familiar with. And of course, if you talk to anybody who has access in the black departments, they'll be able to confirm that, and of course, some other doctors who developed it. So yeah, man, it's a big maelstrom, and what I'm seeing right now is more and more people having whatever it is, whether it's an extraterrestrial experience or something else anomalous, and all of a sudden they're winding up with something like what you're happening. Where you're getting blackouts, missing.
I got patterns. There's patterns of stuff in there that are just, they're very set patterns. It's unnatural to happen in the brain like that. Mm-hmm. I talked to a couple different neurologists. They skirt around them. They talk about all the stuff they don't see, but it's like, how about those? They won't talk about that. They'll say, well, your hypothalamus is enlarged, and it's no. What about those things? Well,
you don't
your
know.
Sinuses are clear, and it's what about those things?
Do you think that they're just incompetent? Some doctors, I don't think the radiologist or anybody who's looking at it would even know what they're looking at half the time. What do you think?
That could be. Well, they got this professional pride. Doctors like to be thought of as gods, and they don't like saying they don't know. And it's kind of like, I'd like it if you said, I don't know, I wonder what the heck that is. Tell me something. But don't treat me like it's not really there. You guys can see them for yourselves. It's like, it's not in my imagination. Is it in my head? Yeah, it's definitely in my head.
Well, you know what, John? It's a miracle you survived. Honestly, where you've been with the MK Ultra, it's really a blessing. Yeah.
Shot up and blasted up pretty good, but I was conditioned to be survivable, to go to very hostile places under very hostile circumstances and come out on top. And I trained others to be that way too. So I was very successful at it, or considered a success. They didn't like it when I finally walked away. But hey, they were trying to kill me anyway. It's like, why couldn't they just leave me alone? But they don't, not ever.
No, and I think that, what put you on as a candidate is probably your mystical background, your state of consciousness, the abilities you have. Wouldn't you say to some degree?
Well, they certainly do pick. Well, back then they were picking people from certain genetic backgrounds, and I think they were looking for those traits. I don't think they knew that my grandma and, that the women in our family were practicing witches, back for centuries on end. I don't think they knew that, because our next door neighbors and a lot of their best friends never knew that. So I don't think that was common knowledge. I knew they had something to do with my grandfather before me. I knew that they had abused my mother in some kind of program or another, but trying to get her to talk straight about it or anything just doesn't happen. And it's kind of like, I don't like to antagonize her or hurt her.
No.
I love my mom. I don't care. She slipped up here, there, or the other place. It's kind of like, well, none of us is perfect, and she's still my mom. I'll always love her. I'd give my life for her in a heartbeat.
You're a good soul, John. Any way you look at it, you're a good being. And, we're getting close to wrapping this up here. I just want to let everybody know, if they want to get in touch with you, once again, they can do that through Facebook. You think that's the best way to go?
Oh, yeah. I haven't reached I think the 5,000 is your limit, and then you have to start another page or something like that. But I'm nowhere near that. So, it's like, you want a friend, I'll put you on. I don't have to know who you are. You act up, I'll block you.
Like me.
Well, I get a lot of shills too.
Oh yeah.
Come in and try to tell me I don't know about what happened with 9/11, and it's kind of, look, dude, I did not flunk high school physics. We're not talking politics, we're talking physics. Let's call a spade a freaking shovel. But I will accept French, and you can, once you can go there looking in the albums. There's witchy artifacts, stuff about witchcraft, things are done and things are made, and orbs and stuff. I got a YouTube channel, Storm 53. Storm is with 2 M's. Some videos on there about a lot of this stuff, things that will kind of amaze you towards the paranormal. I try to put things in as plain a language as I can so that anybody can adapt it to whatever culture they come from. I got a very interesting letter from a Persian fella in Iran who had read Practical Witchery, and he was reading his own culture's thing on jinn and stuff like that. And it's like he was looking at him in a mythological context, and then he read my book and looked back, and the lights come on, and he was understanding all of it. And him
John?
and his family was just wild about it. I was so happy.
Well, John, I want to thank you so much. We're just about out of time here. I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's been an honor and a pleasure as always. And everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. And stay tuned for Dr. J Radio Live coming up next here on the Dark Matter Radio Network, of course. And I just want to make sure anything else you want to say? I think we're just about out of time. I bet we are. How are we doing here? Oh, we have 30 seconds. Okay. Any final word about anything?
No, just check out the books. Like I say, knowledge is power. Get your own.
Absolutely.
I'll help any way I can.
Yes, and you're a very good role model for all of us, without a doubt here. Are you going to do a bio at any point in the continuum? Maybe some personal MK Ultra bio? Book?
Well, I've done a few articles and stuff, and I still do a few of those from time to time. I should probably wrap something up and stick them in a book in Bookricks or something. That would probably be a good idea.
I think so, and also defense of protecting yourself from MK Ultra. All right, everybody, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and thank you, Keith.